The instant your financial frequency adjusts, the field listens. The response is immediate because the field is not tracking your actions, your affirmations, or your plans. It is responding to who you are being right now. This is the moment most people misunderstand. In truth, wealth moves the second alignment is recognized internally. The delay people experience is not the field hesitating. It is identity lag. Becoming a millionaire is not an event in time. It is not something that happens to you in the future once conditions are met. It is a synchronization. A quiet internal agreement between who you see yourself as and what the field is allowed to reflect back. The moment that agreement stabilizes, the field reorganizes automatically. This is not motivation. This is mechanics. You are not sending requests to reality. You are broadcasting a state. The field mirrors states, not words. It mirrors emotional posture, self-perception, and expectation without effort. When your inner state shifts from wanting wealth to recognizing yourself as someone for whom wealth is natural, the signal changes. And when the signal changes, the reflection cannot remain the same. This is law. Most people try to think their way into wealth. They rehearse futures, repeat phrases, visualize outcomes. But none of that matters if the identity underneath still feels separate, still feels behind, still feels like it is waiting for permission. Waiting is a frequency. And the field reflects it perfectly. The adjustment happens when you stop reaching. When you stop positioning wealth as something ahead of you. When the nervous system relaxes into the assumption that support is normal, not earned. That relaxation is not laziness. It is coherence. It tells the field that nothing needs to be proven. And when nothing needs to be proven, resistance dissolves. This is why the shift feels subtle, almost anticlimactic. There is no explosion. No dramatic moment. Just a quiet internal settling. A sense that something has already clicked into place. From that point forward, movement begins, not because you push, but because the field finally has a clear instruction. Calm certainty moves faster than desperation ever could. The mind wants timelines. It wants steps. It wants reassurance. But the field only needs alignment. The second your frequency adjusts, the path reorganizes without asking you how it should look. Opportunities, timing, connections, and decisions begin arranging themselves around this new identity. Not as a reward, but as a consequence. This is the moment you stop trying to become someone and start recognizing who you already are. Not by effort, but by allowance. Not by force, but by coherence. This changes everything. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. Money is not something you pursue. It is something that appears when your inner state makes space for it. This is where the distortion begins for most people. They treat money as a goal, an object outside themselves that must be earned, convinced, or captured. But money does not respond to pursuit. It responds to coherence. It reflects the relationship you have with yourself long before it reflects numbers in an account. Money is a mirror. It does not judge. It does not decide. It simply shows you, with precision, how you see yourself, how safe you feel receiving, and how natural you believe support is in your life. When money feels distant, it is not withholding. It is revealing distance within your own identity. When money feels unstable, it is reflecting instability in expectation, not lack of effort. Chasing money is a declaration of separation. It signals to the field that wealth is elsewhere, ahead of you, reserved for a future version of yourself that does not yet exist. That signal is clean, and the field mirrors it perfectly. The more you chase, the more distance is reinforced. Not as punishment, but as accuracy. Neutrality changes the signal entirely. Neutrality does not mean indifference. It means familiarity. It means money is no longer placed on a pedestal or treated as proof of worth. When money stops being charged with meaning, urgency, or identity validation, it becomes free to move. The field responds to what feels normal, not what feels dramatic. Recognition is the turning point. When you recognize yourself as someone who is supported by reality, money no longer has a role to play in proving anything. It becomes a byproduct. A side effect. A reflection of inner order. This is why some people appear to receive with ease while others struggle endlessly despite effort. The difference is not intelligence or strategy. It is internal positioning. If money still feels like a goal, the mirror will continue to show distance. If money feels like a reflection, the mirror adjusts effortlessly. This is not about pretending or convincing yourself. The field does not respond to surface thoughts. It responds to the emotional baseline you return to when no one is watching. That baseline is the instruction. Wanting money intensely often feels productive, but it carries tension. That tension communicates lack. Calm expectation communicates sufficiency. The field cannot confuse the two. It will always respond to the dominant emotional truth, not the story you tell about it. This is why effort alone cannot solve a money pattern. Effort can change circumstances temporarily, but the mirror will eventually restore the familiar image. Only when the internal relationship shifts does the reflection stabilize. When you stop asking money to become something for you, it becomes free to flow to you. Money does not define you. It describes you. It describes your level of trust, ease, and self-recognition in this moment. When those shift, the mirror has no choice but to change with them. Nothing changes until you do, because the field does not negotiate with contradiction. It does not average your intentions. It does not respond to what you wish were true. It responds to what is coherent within you right now. This is why effort alone so often fails. Effort can move behavior, but it cannot override an identity that has not given permission for change. Internal contradiction is the quiet resistance most people never notice. It sounds like wanting more while feeling unsafe receiving it. It looks like working hard while expecting disappointment. It feels like hope layered over doubt. The field reads this instantly. And when the signal is mixed, the response is neutral. Not because reality is blocking you, but because it has no clear instruction. You cannot force coherence. You can only reveal it. Emotional honesty is what clears the signal. Not positivity. Not optimism. Honesty. The willingness to see where you are still holding back, still bracing, still waiting for something external to validate your readiness. The field does not require you to be perfect. It requires you to be aligned. And alignment begins with truth. The reason nothing shifts before you do is simple. Change in the external world would contradict the internal order that currently exists. The field preserves internal consistency. If your self-concept still expects struggle, inconsistency, or conditional support, reality will reflect that faithfully. To do otherwise would be incoherent. Readiness is not about preparation. It is about permission. The moment you internally allow yourself to experience ease without justification, the field has clearance to respond. Until then, it waits. Not passively, but precisely. Waiting for the signal to resolve. This is why people can learn endlessly without transformation. Information does not grant permission. Understanding does not equal alignment. You can intellectually accept abundance while emotionally preparing for loss. The field will always respond to the emotional posture, not the mental agreement. This is not punishment. It is accuracy. When alignment happens, it feels like settling rather than striving. A quiet internal click. The release of needing proof before trusting. The moment you stop trying to convince reality and instead allow yourself to be seen as you are. That moment is not dramatic, but it is decisive. From there, movement becomes natural. The field is not waiting for you to work harder. It is waiting for you to stop sending mixed signals. To stop saying yes internally while bracing for no. To stop rehearsing disappointment while asking for expansion. Coherence is simplicity. One signal. One identity. One expectation. This is the end of initiation. Not because you have learned enough, but because you have seen clearly enough. Seen where effort has been used to avoid permission. Seen where waiting has been disguised as patience. Seen where control has replaced trust. Once this is recognized, change is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that unfolds. Not because you demand it, but because nothing within you is resisting it anymore. Before anything can be adjusted, it must be understood. This is where mechanics replace mythology. Not to complicate, but to clarify. Financial frequency is not a belief system. It is a relationship between inner state and external reflection. And the first mechanic to recognize is this: the field is already rich. Abundance is not something that needs to be generated, attracted, or summoned. It exists as the default condition of the quantum field. Infinite potential, infinite rearrangement, infinite supply. Scarcity does not exist in the field itself. It exists as a filter within perception. A narrowing of allowance. A compression of expectation. The field does not withhold. It reflects the aperture through which it is being experienced. Most people live as if money must be created through effort, strategy, or struggle. But nothing is being created. Wealth already exists in innumerable forms and pathways. What changes is access. And access is determined by tuning, not action. When you tune a radio, you do not generate the signal. You align with it. The signal was always there. Scarcity is not a condition of reality. It is a condition of interpretation. When the nervous system expects limitation, the field responds by delivering limited expressions. When expectation relaxes, the range of available outcomes expands instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. Because the field does not need time to rearrange. It only needs permission. This is why trying to make money often feels exhausting. You are attempting to create what already exists while ignoring the filter that blocks it. Tuning feels effortless by comparison because it removes interference instead of adding force. The moment resistance drops, the signal clarifies. And when the signal clarifies, the reflection must follow. The field does not reward effort. It responds to resonance. Effort can sometimes change circumstances temporarily, but without tuning, the system eventually reverts. The default always returns. This is why wealth gained without alignment often disappears, while wealth that arrives through coherence stabilizes and multiplies. Understanding that the field is already rich changes your posture. You stop positioning yourself as someone trying to extract value from a reluctant universe. You begin to recognize yourself as someone adjusting internal settings to receive what is already available. This removes urgency. It removes desperation. And those removals are not losses. They are upgrades. When scarcity dissolves as a concept, something subtle happens emotionally. The body relaxes. The mind stops scanning for threat. And in that relaxation, the field receives a new instruction. One that says access is safe. One that says expansion is normal. One that says nothing needs to be proven. This is not blind faith. It is mechanical clarity. A locked door does not mean the room is empty. It means the key has not been turned. Tuning is the turning of the key. Like the video now as a confirmation that this recognition has landed. Emotion is the instruction. Not the words you speak. Not the plans you make. Not the images you hold in your mind. The field does not respond to thought in isolation. It responds to the emotional state that carries the thought. Emotion is the carrier wave. It is the signal beneath every intention. This is where most misunderstandings occur. People believe that wanting something strongly sends a powerful message. In reality, intense wanting often carries desperation. And desperation is not a request for abundance. It is a declaration of lack. The field does not interpret meaning. It mirrors frequency. Whatever emotion is dominant becomes the instruction that reality organizes around. Calm certainty is fundamentally different. It does not push. It does not plead. It does not attempt to persuade the field. Calm certainty assumes. It rests. It signals that the outcome is not in question. And because the field is responsive, not evaluative, it reflects that assumption cleanly. Desperation collapses timelines because it introduces urgency. Urgency communicates that something is wrong now and must be fixed by the future. That signal locks attention into absence. The field responds by extending the condition being emphasized. Not out of cruelty, but out of precision. It reflects what is being held emotionally as true. Forcing is another form of emotional instruction. It carries tension, control, and mistrust. It says the field will not respond unless pressure is applied. That pressure becomes the message. And the field responds by creating environments where pressure remains necessary. Effort becomes endless because the emotional instruction never changes. Emotion does not need to be dramatic to be effective. In fact, the most powerful instructions are subtle. A quiet expectation. A relaxed sense of inevitability. A neutral confidence that does not seek validation. These states carry no resistance. They do not contradict themselves. And because they are coherent, they move quickly. This is why emotional regulation is not about suppressing feeling. It is about recognizing what is actually being broadcast. You cannot trick the field by pretending to feel differently. The field responds to the baseline you return to when nothing is happening. That baseline is the real instruction. Hope feels positive, but it often contains doubt. Excitement feels expansive, but it often contains attachment. Anxiety feels productive, but it contains fear. The field responds to the dominant layer, not the surface tone. Calm certainty contains none of these contradictions. It is clean. It is stable. It is trustworthy. When emotion stabilizes, reality reorganizes without struggle. Not because emotion controls the field, but because it aligns with it. The field is neutral. It amplifies what it receives. When the instruction is clear, the response is precise. This is not about trying to feel good all the time. It is about noticing which emotional states you treat as normal. Normalized tension instructs more tension. Normalized ease instructs ease. The field does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be consistent. Once emotion is understood as instruction, force becomes unnecessary. You stop trying to overpower reality and start allowing it to respond. And in that allowance, timelines stop collapsing and begin opening instead. Right now, without changing anything, you are broadcasting a wealth signal. Not intentionally. Not consciously. But continuously. The field is responding to it with precision. This section is not about fixing that signal. It is about seeing it clearly, because awareness alone begins to dissolve distortion. Most people assume their signal comes from what they think about money. In reality, it comes from how their body relates to expectation. From the emotional posture that shows up when plans slow down, when timing feels uncertain, when results are not immediately visible. That posture is the broadcast. And it operates even when the mind is quiet. Subtle resistance patterns are rarely loud. They do not announce themselves as fear or doubt. They appear as tension masked as responsibility. As patience layered over frustration. As optimism that quietly braces for disappointment. These states feel reasonable. They feel justified. But the field does not interpret justification. It reads frequency. The purpose of awareness is not correction. The moment you try to correct, you introduce effort. And effort often carries the same resistance you are trying to escape. Awareness is softer. It simply notices. It lets the signal be seen without argument. And when a signal is fully seen, it begins to reorganize naturally. Notice where you feel tight when thinking about expansion. Notice where you feel the urge to rush, to control, to check. Notice where you feel calm only when nothing is expected of you. These are not flaws. They are information. They show you what the field is currently receiving as instruction. Judgment collapses clarity. When you label a state as wrong, you strengthen it. When you observe it neutrally, it loosens. The field mirrors neutrality with movement. It mirrors judgment with stagnation. This is why self-awareness without self-attack is so powerful. It clears the signal without force. You do not need to raise your frequency. You need to stop contradicting it. Most resistance comes from trying to be somewhere else emotionally. From believing the present state is insufficient. That belief itself becomes the instruction. And the field responds by maintaining insufficiency. As you read this, allow yourself to simply register what feels true. Not what should be true. Not what sounds aligned. What is actually present. That honesty is not a setback. It is a calibration. The field responds immediately to clarity, even before the emotion shifts. The wealth signal you are broadcasting right now is not permanent. It is simply current. And currents change the moment resistance is removed. Not through effort, but through recognition. When the body feels safe being seen as it is, it stops sending mixed messages. You are not being asked to do anything differently yet. Only to see what is happening. This is the turning point most people skip because it feels too simple. But simplicity is coherence. And coherence is what the field responds to fastest. Comment with the words, "I am ready," to anchor this timeline. There is a moment in every expansion where effort must give way to allowance. Not because effort is wrong, but because it has reached its limit. This is the threshold where many people hesitate. Control has felt like safety. Letting go feels like risk. But in the language of the field, control is not safety. It is mistrust. Control signals that you do not believe reality will respond unless you manage every variable. It tells the field that flow is unreliable and must be overridden. That signal is received clearly. And the field responds by creating environments where control remains necessary. More monitoring. More pressure. More friction. Not as a lesson, but as a reflection. Allowing is often misunderstood as passivity. In truth, it is precision. Allowing means you stop interfering with signals you have already sent. It means you stop correcting the path midstream because you are uncomfortable with uncertainty. When you allow, you are not abandoning direction. You are trusting alignment. Control fragments attention. It scatters energy across contingencies, backup plans, and imagined problems. The field mirrors fragmentation with delay. Allowing concentrates attention. It says one thing clearly. And clarity moves faster than force ever could. When you try to control outcomes, you compress timelines. You demand specific forms, specific routes, specific timing. That compression limits the field's options. The response becomes narrow because the instruction is narrow. Allowing expands the range of possibility. It opens precision because it removes insistence. This is why wealth often arrives in unexpected ways once control is released. Not because the field is random, but because it is no longer constrained by your expectations. Precision does not mean predictability. It means accuracy. The field will choose the most efficient path once you stop insisting on seeing it in advance. Control is rooted in fear of absence. Allowing is rooted in trust of presence. The field responds differently to each. Fear tightens. Trust opens. And opening does not mean losing direction. It means removing resistance from movement that is already underway. You do not need to manage timing. Timing is a function of coherence. When your internal state is stable, events synchronize naturally. When you attempt to force timing, you introduce urgency. Urgency tells the field that now is insufficient. And the field responds by extending the condition of insufficiency. Allowing does not mean you stop acting. It means your actions are no longer driven by anxiety. They arise from clarity instead of pressure. From alignment instead of compensation. These actions carry less friction, require less effort, and produce more leverage because they are not contradicting the signal being sent. This is where flow becomes visible. Not as ease without movement, but as movement without strain. Decisions feel simpler. Opportunities feel timely. You are not pushing the river. You are adjusting your position within it. Control blocks wealth because it insists on certainty before trust. Allowing reverses the order. It trusts first, and certainty follows as a reflection. This is not a gamble. It is alignment with how the field actually operates. When control relaxes, precision increases. When resistance dissolves, flow accelerates. And when you stop trying to make wealth happen, you finally allow it to move toward you without obstruction. Contrast is not a punishment. It is not a judgment. It is not evidence that you did something wrong or failed to understand the rules. Contrast is information. Neutral, precise information that refines clarity. The moment struggle is interpreted as punishment, its usefulness is lost. But when it is seen as data, it becomes liberating. Every financial contraction you have experienced served one function: to sharpen awareness. To reveal what you will no longer tolerate, no longer align with, no longer identify as. Contrast shows edges. It shows misalignment clearly so that alignment can be chosen without confusion. The field does not use pain to teach. It reflects states until they are seen. The problem begins when contrast is revisited emotionally. When old scarcity is replayed with charge, regret, or resentment, the signal is reactivated. The field does not distinguish between memory and present experience. Emotional revisiting tells the field the state is still relevant. This is why reflection must be clean. Extract the insight, release the emotion. Calibration does not require reliving. It requires recognition. You do not need to feel the frustration again to know it no longer fits. You do not need to revisit the fear to understand it is obsolete. The moment clarity is extracted, contrast has completed its function. Anything beyond that is unnecessary repetition. Seeing contrast neutrally dissolves its power. It moves past from identity into reference. You stop saying, "This is who I am," and start saying, "This is what I learned." That shift is subtle, but it changes everything. The field responds differently to learning than it does to identification. When contrast is neutralized, emotional charge drains from memory. And when charge drains, resistance collapses. This creates internal space. Space is not emptiness. Space is availability. It allows the present moment to stabilize without interference from past signals. Many people believe they must overcome their past to move forward. In truth, they only need to stop carrying it emotionally. The field does not require healing rituals or revisiting narratives. It requires coherence now. The present state overrides the past the moment the past is no longer emotionally active. This is why contrast precedes stability. It clarifies preference. It sharpens identity. But it is never meant to be lived in permanently. Staying in contrast is not growth. It is stagnation disguised as reflection. Once contrast has done its work, it naturally releases. There is no ceremony. No declaration. Just a quiet sense that something is complete. From that completion, the present moment becomes lighter. Less crowded. More responsive. This prepares you for stabilization. A present moment that is no longer burdened by emotional memory becomes a clean selection point. The field responds fastest to clean moments. Moments without residue. Moments where clarity exists without charge. Contrast refines. It never punishes. The instant you stop treating it as a verdict and start seeing it as information, its role in your experience ends. And what follows is not struggle, but precision. Creation does not happen later. It does not happen when conditions improve, when confidence increases, or when certainty arrives. Creation only happens now, because now is the only point where identity is active. The future is imagined. The past is remembered. Neither can instruct the field. Only the present state can. Waiting feels passive, but it is not neutral. Waiting is an instruction. It tells the field that fulfillment belongs elsewhere in time. That message is received clearly. And the field responds by maintaining distance between you and what you are waiting for. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are aligned with postponement. Most people believe they are being patient when they are actually delaying. They hold an internal posture that says, not yet. Not safe yet. Not enough yet. That posture becomes the active selection. The field does not respond to desire for the future. It responds to embodiment in the present. The present moment is not a slice of time. It is a state of being. When you embody now, you stop referencing something missing. You stop orienting yourself toward arrival. You settle into sufficiency without needing evidence. That settlement is not resignation. It is alignment. Wealth cannot arrive into a state that is waiting for it. It can only appear as a reflection of what is already assumed. This is why future-based thinking delays manifestation. It keeps identity displaced. It keeps fulfillment conceptual instead of embodied. Embodiment means allowing the emotional posture of having without having the form yet. It means relaxing into trust without needing proof. It means letting the nervous system feel supported now, not once circumstances change. This is subtle, but it is decisive. The field responds to embodiment instantly. Timelines are not created. They are selected. And selection happens through presence. The version of you that exists now is the one choosing which path unfolds. If that version is oriented toward someday, the timeline reflects someday. If that version is settled, the timeline responds with movement. This does not mean pretending the future does not matter. It means removing your identity from it. When identity is projected forward, power leaves the present. And without power in the present, nothing can reorganize. The now is where coherence lives. It is where emotion stabilizes, where resistance dissolves, where signals become clear. The field does not need duration. It needs alignment. And alignment is only ever available now. This is why small internal shifts produce rapid external changes. Not because time collapses, but because resistance has been removed at the point of instruction. When you stop waiting, the field no longer has to maintain delay. Waiting is subtle. It often disguises itself as planning, preparing, or improving. But the emotional tone gives it away. There is tension. There is anticipation. There is a sense that life has not started yet. The field mirrors that sense faithfully. Presence removes anticipation. Not by rejecting the future, but by withdrawing identity from it. You stop asking when. You stop checking. You stop bracing. And in that release, movement begins. Creation only happens now because now is where you are whole. Not striving. Not reaching. Not waiting. Whole. From that wholeness, the field receives a clean instruction. And clean instructions produce immediate response. When now is embodied, wealth no longer feels distant. It feels inevitable. Not because you are hoping, but because nothing within you is postponing it anymore. There is a shift that happens when understanding turns into embodiment. Up to this point, clarity has been forming. Now that clarity must be lived. This is where the idea of wealth stops being conceptual and becomes personal. Not as a goal, but as a way of being. A millionaire is not defined by a number. A number is a measurement, not an identity. Identity comes first. Numbers follow. When people fixate on amounts, they unknowingly delay alignment. They place wealth in the future and themselves in the present as someone not yet ready. That separation becomes the instruction the field responds to. Identity is what selects timelines. Not desire. Not effort. Not intention. Identity is the lens through which reality is filtered. When you see yourself as someone moving toward wealth, the field reflects movement. When you see yourself as someone who is wealthy, the field reflects stability, access, and continuity. The difference is subtle internally, but massive externally. Wealth identities are not loud. They do not posture. They do not seek validation. They are calm, grounded, and familiar with sufficiency. This is why obsession with numbers is counterproductive. Obsession signals lack. It says the number is needed to complete something internally. The field responds by keeping completion out of reach. Dissolving fixation does not mean ignoring numbers. It means removing emotional charge from them. Numbers become indicators, not validators. They inform without defining. When money stops being asked to prove worth, it becomes free to move and expand. Identity is not created through affirmation. It is revealed through expectation. Notice what feels normal to receive. Notice what feels safe to assume. Notice what level of support your body relaxes into without question. That is your current wealth identity. The field reflects it precisely. Changing identity does not require force. It requires allowance. You allow yourself to expect more without justification. You allow ease to feel normal instead of suspicious. You allow support without immediately scanning for loss. These allowances are quiet, but they are decisive. They shift the baseline the field responds to. When identity stabilizes, timelines reorganize automatically. Opportunities appear without urgency. Decisions simplify. Money flows in ways that feel ordinary rather than dramatic. This ordinariness is not boredom. It is alignment. Wealth that feels special does not last. Wealth that feels normal does. The fixation on becoming a millionaire keeps people trapped in transition. Transition is not a place to live. Identity is. The moment you stop asking when and start noticing who you are being, the selection changes. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped contradicting it. This is not about pretending you already have what you want. It is about recognizing that who you are does not need permission from a number. When self-recognition precedes evidence, evidence follows naturally. The field responds to who you are, not who you hope to become. A millionaire is an identity because identity is what reality mirrors. Once that identity is assumed calmly, without effort or urgency, the amount becomes inevitable. Not as a finish line, but as a reflection of who you have already decided to be. The field responds to self-trust because self-trust is stability. It is the signal that says you will not collapse when things expand. Wealth does not require ambition to arrive, but it does require a nervous system that can hold it without contraction. Self-trust is what tells the field that expansion is safe. When self-trust is absent, doubt fills the space. Doubt does not stop money from appearing, but it prevents it from staying. This is why some people experience sudden gains followed by loss. The field mirrors uncertainty with volatility. It is not testing you. It is matching your internal posture. Self-trust is not confidence in outcomes. It is confidence in your ability to respond. It is the quiet knowing that you can navigate whatever arises without panic or self-betrayal. That knowing relaxes control. And when control relaxes, the field no longer needs to regulate through disruption. Doubt fragments attention. It splits focus between desire and fear. One part of you moves forward while another prepares for collapse. The field cannot stabilize around a split signal. It responds by creating oscillation. Up and down. Gain and loss. Opportunity followed by hesitation. This pattern continues until the signal resolves. Strategy cannot compensate for posture. You can follow the right steps and still experience instability if the internal state does not trust itself. The field does not reward cleverness. It responds to coherence. A simple plan held with self-trust will outperform a complex strategy held with fear. Internal posture determines how wealth is integrated. When money arrives into a system that expects loss, it triggers contraction. Spending becomes reactive. Decisions become rushed. The field reflects this by narrowing flow. When money arrives into a system that trusts itself, it is met with calm. Choices remain grounded. Flow continues. Self-trust also removes urgency. Urgency signals that something must be secured before it disappears. That signal keeps wealth moving instead of settling. Trust tells the field there is no threat. And in the absence of threat, accumulation becomes natural. This is why wealth stabilizes when people stop watching it nervously. Monitoring does not create safety. It communicates fear of loss. Self-trust creates safety because it does not require constant checking. The field responds by maintaining what is no longer being questioned. You do not build self-trust through success. Success reveals self-trust that was already present. Trust is chosen internally before evidence appears. It shows up as calm decision-making, emotional regulation, and consistency regardless of circumstance. The field responds to self-trust because self-trust removes contradiction. It aligns action, expectation, and identity into a single signal. That signal does not waver. And when the signal does not waver, the response stabilizes. Wealth flow is not stabilized by control or planning. It is stabilized by a posture that says, I am steady no matter what. When the field receives that instruction, it mirrors it with continuity, reliability, and support. Wealth begins to stabilize when it stops feeling special. This is one of the most counterintuitive thresholds, and also one of the most decisive. As long as money carries emotional charge, it carries separation. Excitement, reverence, fixation, even gratitude layered with relief all imply the same thing: this is not normal yet. And the field reflects that implication precisely. When wealth feels extraordinary, it is treated as temporary. Not consciously, but emotionally. The nervous system braces. Attention sharpens. There is a subtle sense of holding on. That holding is not appreciation. It is vigilance. And vigilance tells the field that loss is expected. The response becomes unstable because the instruction is unstable. Emotional charge keeps money in motion. Up and down. In and out. Arriving and leaving. This is why dramatic gains often come with dramatic fluctuations. The field mirrors the intensity it receives. Intensity does not stabilize. Neutrality does. Neutrality does not mean boredom or indifference. It means familiarity. It means money no longer needs to be acknowledged as proof of safety or worth. It becomes part of the environment rather than an event. And what is treated as environment is maintained effortlessly. Reverence is another subtle form of separation. When money is placed above you, it is no longer integrated with identity. It becomes something that can be lost, something that must be protected, something that has power over emotional state. The field responds by reinforcing that hierarchy. Wealth remains conditional. When money stops feeling special, it stops being monitored. And when it stops being monitored, it settles. The field responds to what is no longer questioned. Constant attention signals uncertainty. Relaxed presence signals trust. Trust is what allows accumulation rather than circulation. This is why people who normalize wealth tend to experience quiet growth. There is no emotional spike when money arrives. No internal story about what it means. No urgency to secure or defend. The system remains calm, and calm systems integrate resources efficiently. Excitement feels positive, but it often contains attachment. Attachment introduces fear of loss. Fear of loss fragments the signal. The field reflects fragmentation with instability. Neutrality removes attachment by removing the need for meaning. Money becomes useful, not symbolic. When wealth is neutral, decisions become cleaner. Spending is not reactive. Saving is not compulsive. Investment is not charged. Each action arises from clarity instead of emotion. The field mirrors this clarity with consistency. This is not about suppressing appreciation. Appreciation without attachment is simply presence. It does not elevate money above identity. It does not require reaction. It is quiet and grounding. That kind of appreciation does not destabilize. It integrates. Wealth that remains is wealth that belongs. And belonging is communicated through normalcy. When money feels like it belongs in your life, the field agrees. When it feels like a visitor, the field keeps it moving. The moment wealth stops feeling special, it stops testing your system. It no longer needs to arrive dramatically or leave suddenly. It becomes part of the rhythm. And rhythm, not intensity, is what allows expansion to continue without interruption. There comes a point where explanation gives way to realization. Not because there is nothing left to understand, but because understanding is no longer the operative force. This is where the orientation shifts completely. You are no longer someone learning how to create wealth. You recognize that you were never creating anything at all. You are not producing abundance through effort or alignment. You are selecting experiences through consciousness. The field does not respond to you as a person trying to get something. It responds to you as awareness choosing a state. This distinction dissolves the seeker identity instantly. There is nothing to chase when nothing is missing. The idea of creating wealth implies absence. It assumes something is not here yet and must be brought into being. That assumption keeps identity positioned as incomplete. Consciousness does not operate from incompletion. It operates from selection. It moves through states the way light moves through lenses. Nothing is built. Nothing is earned. Something is simply activated. When you identify as a person creating wealth, effort feels necessary. Struggle feels justified. Time feels required. When you recognize yourself as consciousness selecting an experience, effort falls away naturally. Not because action stops, but because action is no longer compensatory. It arises from clarity rather than need. The field is not something outside you responding to requests. It is the medium through which consciousness experiences itself. When this is seen, the relationship reverses. You stop waiting for confirmation. You stop scanning for evidence. You stop asking whether alignment is working. Selection is already happening. This is why realization feels quiet. There is no rush of excitement. No sense of arrival. Just a settling. A simplicity. The pressure to do something disappears because the need to become something dissolves. You are no longer positioning yourself as a small self trying to influence a larger system. You recognize yourself as the awareness within which systems reorganize. Effort belongs to the seeker. Recognition belongs to consciousness. The moment recognition stabilizes, effort becomes unnecessary. Not because things happen without movement, but because movement is no longer driven by lack. It is guided by resonance. This is also why wealth accelerates after realization without becoming dramatic. There is no emotional charge. No story about what it means. Consciousness does not celebrate outcomes. It experiences them. And because there is no attachment, there is no resistance. You were never meant to figure this out through striving. The striving itself was the veil. The field was always responding. The only delay was identification with the one who thought they needed to make something happen. When identity collapses into awareness, timing reorganizes. Decisions simplify. Paths converge. Not because you are controlling them, but because there is no longer internal contradiction. Consciousness selects cleanly when it is not pretending to be small. You are not creating wealth. You are allowing the experience of wealth to pass through awareness without obstruction. The moment that is recognized, the entire dynamic changes. There is nothing to fix. Nothing to improve. Nothing to wait for. From here, wealth is no longer a destination. It is a state that becomes available because nothing within you is resisting its presence. Consciousness does not chase. It chooses. And once chosen, the experience unfolds on its own. Confirmation does not arrive as a sign you must interpret or a result you must analyze. It arrives as ease. As a quiet sense that things are moving without being pushed. This is how the field confirms alignment. Not with spectacle, but with simplicity. The moment the field confirms you, effort loses its edge. Actions feel lighter. Decisions require less deliberation. There is no internal debate about whether you are doing the right thing. Not because certainty has been manufactured, but because resistance has dissolved. When the signal is clear, the response does not need to announce itself. Synchronicity is often misunderstood as something magical or rare. In truth, it is the natural byproduct of coherence. When internal state and external movement align, timing tightens. Opportunities appear when they are usable. Conversations happen when they are relevant. Information arrives when it can be acted upon. Nothing feels forced, and nothing feels late. This is not because you have learned how to control reality. It is because you have stopped interfering with it. The field responds most cleanly when it is not being managed. When there is no attachment to form, it chooses the most efficient expression automatically. Confirmation does not demand belief. It emerges organically. You may notice that what once required motivation now happens naturally. That what used to feel like effort now feels obvious. These are not coincidences. They are reflections of internal stabilization. Timing is one of the clearest indicators. Things align without rushing. There is movement without urgency. Progress without anxiety. When the field confirms you, it removes the need to hurry. Haste only appears when trust is absent. In the presence of trust, pacing becomes exact. There is also a reduction in noise. Less overthinking. Fewer emotional spikes. You are no longer scanning for proof that things are working. The need for reassurance fades because reassurance is built into the experience. This is not complacency. It is confidence without tension. The mistake many people make at this stage is trying to replicate or control confirmation. They look for patterns and attempt to repeat them. This reintroduces attachment. The field does not respond to replication. It responds to presence. The moment you try to manage ease, it disappears. Trust in unfolding is not passive. It is active non-interference. It is allowing momentum to continue without interruption. When confirmation appears, the most aligned response is to stay neutral. To let things happen without commentary. Confirmation does not always look like instant results. Sometimes it looks like space. Like clarity. Like the absence of struggle. These are not delays. They are recalibrations. The field clears friction before accelerating flow. You do not need to interpret signs or assign meaning. Meaning creates attachment. The field communicates through feeling. When things feel right without needing justification, confirmation is present. This is the moment to rest inside alignment. Not to pause action, but to release doubt. The field has received the instruction. The response is underway. Your role is no longer to initiate, but to allow. When confirmation is recognized without grasping, unfolding becomes inevitable. And inevitability does not require belief. It requires trust. This timeline is already active because selection does not wait for evidence. It responds to recognition. At some point along this path, something resolved quietly. Not with certainty about how, but with certainty about being. The moment you stopped treating wealth as something to reach and began relating to it as something permitted, the selection was made. Timelines are not earned. They are aligned with. The Millionaire timeline does not activate when numbers appear. Numbers appear because the timeline is active. Cause and effect reverse at this level. Identity leads. Reality follows. What you experience from here forward is simply the unfolding of a decision that has already occurred internally. Completion does not feel like celebration. It feels like calm. Like the absence of urgency. Like no longer needing to check whether you are on the right path. When a timeline is active, doubt becomes unnecessary because nothing within you is questioning the direction anymore. The field reflects that stability by removing friction. This is why the final shift is subtle. There is no finish line moment where everything suddenly makes sense. There is just a steady sense that nothing needs to be forced. That life is cooperating without persuasion. That outcomes no longer feel conditional. This is not complacency. It is coherence. The Millionaire timeline is not defined by accumulation. It is defined by relationship. A relationship with ease. With self-trust. With neutrality. With expectation that does not fluctuate. Once that relationship stabilizes, numbers reorganize naturally around it. Not as proof, but as consequence. You may notice that the future no longer feels heavy. Planning becomes simpler. Decisions feel less charged. The need to protect or prepare diminishes. These are not signs of disengagement. They are signs of alignment. When identity and timeline match, effort becomes optional rather than required. Nothing needs to be added at this point. No technique. No ritual. No reinforcement. The selection is stable because it was made without pressure. The field does not need reminders. It responds to what is consistent. And consistency is already present. This is where many people try to do something to secure the outcome. That impulse is understandable, but unnecessary. Securing implies risk. Risk implies doubt. Doubt reopens selection. Completion means allowing the process to continue without interference. The Millionaire timeline is not something you step into later. It is something you stop stepping out of. The moment you ceased contradicting it internally, it became the only available path. From here, movement is not dramatic, but it is certain. This is not the end of effort. It is the end of strain. Action will still occur, but it will arise from clarity instead of compensation. Choices will still be made, but they will not be charged with fear. The field will continue responding because nothing within you is sending a conflicting instruction. There is nothing left to seek. Only something to allow. The unfolding will take care of itself because the identity selecting it is no longer unstable. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.